want to show you something about digging. We never want to dig a hole straight down, and I want to show you why. So if I just start digging a hole, if I just start digging a big hole, what you'll notice after a while is that some of the snow that I start digging starts falling back in the same hole. And it keeps happening. The deeper I get, the more the snow just keeps falling back in the same hole. And I have to move some of that same snow, 2 or 3 times. And it's really inefficient. And team, this is another good example. You can see here the young guys are trying to dig their friend up, but they've dug a hole straight down, which is a big mistake, and means that they have to move the same snow 2 or 3 times. You can see, if you watch carefully, the snow that they're moving out of the hole just keeps falling back in the hole. There's obviously another couple of issues here that's in this example. You can see the gloves are off. You obviously want to keep your gloves on. But the other big thing is you can see, because there's not much room and they've dug straight down, they're almost standing on top of where their friend is trying to be rescued. So it makes it very, very awkward and hard to extract. Also, if I'm going to try and get somebody out of a hole that's really deep, I can't do first aid. I can't help them if there's a big deep hole sort of right here. So that's really important. Don't dig a hole straight down. We need to instead build a ramp, and I'll show you how to do that right now. So the primary job of the first diggers that come onto the scene is to build a ramp down to the person that's not too steep. Typically we're aiming for about 20 or 25 degrees. If it's steeper than that, the snow that's on the side of the holes will fall back in the same hole, and some of the snow that you move out of the hole will fall back into the hole. So this was around about 70 centimeters here. So on a steeper slope like this, I just need to go back about 70 centimeters, and that's where I'll start digging. If it was flat though, I might need to go back about twice the depth, So if it was flat ground, probably need to start back here in order to make that ramp angle shallower enough that it's efficient and the snow's not falling back in the same hole. But let's start with this slope. So it's down about 70. I start down the slope about 70, so I start digging right here. On steep slopes, you need to go down the hill about 1 times the depth. So if somebody's buried about 2 meters down, you need to start down the hill about 2 meters and then start digging towards the person. We want to keep that ramp angle, again, at no more than about 20 degrees. And once you've uncovered part of their body, immediately then go for the head to clear their airway. And then on flat or relatively flat slopes, you need to go further back down the hill in order to create that ramp angle that's not as steep. So if somebody was buried down 2 meters, you'd need to go back 4 meters in order to create that 20-degree angle. I want to dig hard and I want to dig fast. So it looks something like this. I just start digging, chopping away, moving the snow, 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 chopping, 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 chopping. And at this point, I've found the person. I can remove the probe only at that point, once I've found them. And then I want to start just digging them out. And you can see what this does is it makes a fantastic platform for doing first aid. And it means that none of the snow has fallen back in from the sides. So it's been really, really efficient. So that's how we want to dig. We want to come in from below, we want to move the snow downhill, and we want to build a ramp. And this ramp angle should be no more than about 20-25 degrees, somewhere in that range, because then this snow won't fall back in the same hole. That's really important. Team, if we've got more than one digger, then you can have 2 diggers coming in at the same face. So I could have one digger that is here, like me, and I could have a second digger just on the side, also moving snow back in a real hurry. That's important. So the first 2 diggers that are here, they're called the ramp builders, because they're building a ramp that's not too steep down to them. We also need, as we get more diggers, 4 people to come behind the ramp builders, and we call these guys the conveyor belt, And they come in behind just far enough back from these people that they're not getting hit in the face by the shovels. And their job is to move the snow back in a canoe-like motion, moving the snow back in the canoe motion, getting it out of the way. And you can have 2 people here, and then you can add on, just have more and more people coming in behind. So you can see in this little video, the guy up the front, he's the ramp builder, and he needs a conveyor belt to get rid of this big pile of snow. A conveyor belt will come in the form of extra people. So if you arrive on the scene, start moving that pile of snow out of the way, be the conveyor belt. The disadvantage with all these techniques is that the ramp builders are doing most of the work, maybe 80% more. So every minute or 2 minutes, we need to trade those people up. We normally rotate in a clockwise direction. Where this technique doesn't work very well with 2 people is if somebody's buried right next to a tree. In that case, there's only room for 1 person up the front, and then we have a triangle of people coming up behind them, moving snow back. So you have 1 ramp builder if they're stuck next to a tree, and then a bunch of people that are the conveyor belt moving snow back at the back. And that's the case if somebody's been buried in a tree well. If they've been buried in a tree well, there's not enough room for 2 people up the front. Just 1 person really is the main digger, and the other people are just moving the snow out of the way after that person's building that ramp down to them. Sometimes people are lucky enough and smart enough to have created an air pocket under the snow when the avalanche forms. The way that's done is, as the avalanche is slowing, you just make a bunch of erratic, fast movements in front of your face. And sometimes that can make a nice little air pocket that gives you more time to breathe, which is pretty awesome. Sometimes it'll happen naturally. But one of the big things to watch that's pretty scary is if you're a rescuer, you don't want to stand directly on top of where they are, because if they've got this air pocket, you'll collapse it. So don't stand directly on top. You want to come in from below instead. So I'll sort of demonstrate what that should look like. Directly on top of where the person is, because if they've got any sort of air pocket, I'll probably collapse it right on top of them. And now they're not feeling very happy. So instead, what I should have done is come in from below and just move the snow downhill. So I want to be careful, even when I'm probing, but particularly when I'm shoveling, not to stand directly on top of where I think the person is. I often get asked what part of a person's body should we dig out first, and the clear answer is we have to dig out their mouth and nose first, because they're suffocating underneath the snow. They need to breathe. That's the critical imperative. You'll normally find their torso first, because that's where their transceiver is, and it's also the biggest part of their body. So once you find their torso, immediately you've got to say, okay, their torso's here, their head therefore should be here, and that last little bit of uncovering their torso, don't whack them in the head with the shovel, it'll kill them. Instead, be careful, use your gloves and move the snow away from their face and their nose. Move the snow away from their face and their nose. And sometimes you'll have to help clear that out completely. That's it. So team, the key points of digging are always approach from below or the side. You don't want to stand directly on top of where you think the person is buried. Number 2, move the snow downhill because it's easier. Number 3, build a ramp, not a hole. Number 4, work as a team. You need to change roles. We have ramp builders and conveyors. The ramp builders are doing most of the work, change up every minute or so. Number 5, distance. Have enough room that you're not whacking each other in the face with a shovel. That's important. And number 6, always dig for their mouth or their nose first because they need to breathe.